Hey everybody, this is John Wood and thanks for stopping by J Wood Fly Fishing. In this video I'm going to show you how to tie my DQ hopper. It's a hopper pattern that I tied originally during a fly tying contest and got eliminated on it because one of the legs was hanging crooked and the judge didn't like it. Ironically, he came back later and had me show him how I was tying it, and then I just started working on it until I worked out a version that's consistent, and this is it. So I'll show you how to do this. I'm going to start with a 3769 TMC hook. It's actually a nymph hook, but I like it because of the weight. And before we put it in the vise, I'm going to put the belly piece on there, and that's a 2mm foam cut with the River Roads Creations Chernobyl tapered foam body cutter. There's one for the belly and one for the back. I'm just going to pierce this hook through there. I'm going to set that up so the back end of the foam is touching the shank, and then pierce it right through the center of the foam. Slide it up on there and clamp it in the vise. Now I'm going to cut it to length. I'm just going to kind of line up where it's pierced, the foam is pierced, with the barb of the hook, and you can just however you can do that to get the length set, and just cut that foam strip at that length, and you can see how long it is right there. It's right behind the eye of the hook. Now I'm going to start my thread, which is olive 6/0 uni thread, and pop that tag off, wrap it back to a point even with the back of the barb of the hook, and you can see that's kind of an open spiral, and I want this kind of rough because it'll help it grab better. And I'm going to make a second round, come all the way back to the eye of the hook, and then a third round. And on the third round is when I build me a little thread bump right there, and that just kind of, it does a couple things. One, it keeps me from pulling the foam too far forward, and the other one is it helps anchor the tail end of the fly. Now bring it back around, the thread back up to just behind the eye of the hook. Now I'm going to use a little liquid Loctite super glue. Here we go. Just a little bit. I don't want too much. I don't want it to be enough to completely fold that foam up. Now I'm going to position the foam right there, right behind the eye of the hook, and just kind of semi-fold it on there. And if you hold it in place just for a few seconds, it'll lock down. Now I'm going to lock it down behind the eye of the hook with thread wraps, and then spin it over, and I'm going to hop my thread back to right about the halfway point, maybe just a little bit less, between where that is tied in and where the hook comes through that foam in the back at the bend of the hook. Get a couple wraps there just to hold that segmentation in place, and then come back to where the hook pierces the foam and create that segmentation. And that's what we've got right there. I just want to kind of go ahead and make sure that's nice and dry before I start. There we go. Now I'm going to put a little drop of super glue right back here on the tail, not too much. Just lightly moisten it with that super glue, drop the back piece on, compress it, and with this foam, that Loctite it sets instantly. Now I'm going to use my thumbnail, crease the foam, and pull it towards me just a little bit, right where that thread is hanging. Bring the thread over evenly and pinch it as I come around, and that locks that thing down in place. Then I'm going to take 3 or 4 wraps right there, right where I was, and then bring the thread up here to the top in that groove, and then pull it forward. I'm keeping a little bit of tension on it, and that'll keep that thread up on the top side so it doesn't show on the finished fly. Make one round there, and then repeat that process at that segmentation. As it comes around, pinch it. And I'm just going to take 2 more wraps here because we're going to add additional wraps later. And repeat the process to bring the thread forward right behind the eye. And again, snug that foam by pulling it forward a little bit. Use my thumbnail. Pinch it, roll it towards me, and then that offsets the thread torque. And then I'm going to make several wraps there. Check that I'm right behind the eye. And that's locked down. And now I'm going to jump my thread back to the center segmentation. Now here's where our CCT fiber comes in. And this is a Cascade Crest CCT fiber in fluorescent chartreuse. And I just cut one of the small bundles loose from the hank. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to measure it about the length of the olive foam piece. Catch it in with 2 wraps. Fold that forward piece back and catch it with a wrap or 2. And that kind of creates a little V with the material on top. And then I'm going to trim it about 2 millimeters longer than the back of the fly. There we go. And because that's got a binding wrap on it, I'm just going to kind of brush it out a little bit, and that lets that underwing spread out. Now for the upper wing, I have got just, it's already stacked, some deer body hair, just natural color. I've already stacked it. And it's a small bundle. It's not much, not as much as you would think you would need for a fly this size. If you overdo it, then it spreads out too much and it just kind of gets unruly. And that's how much I've got right there. And I'm going to position it using this band of tan coloration where it meets the gray. I'm going to put that right at the back of where those CCT fiber ends are. And I'm going to keep this right up on top. And I want to keep it contained on top towards the middle. I'm going to do that by making 1 loose wrap, and then as I come around, I'll pull it tight all the way down and then make 2 more wraps. And then when I let that go, you can see that it's kind of right up on top. Now I'm just going to get in here with my scissors, hold the wing down, and then just trim these butts loose. Trim them loose. There we go. Get that all off of there. And there you have it. Your wing is in place, and now I'm just going to take 2 wraps through the butts, and that really locks that down, and you won't have any trouble with it going anywhere. See, I got a couple of scragglers there. Alright, there we go. And it's kind of flaring upward, but don't worry about that. It's because when we bend this over, we're going to contain it. And to help do that, I'm going to take this foam, fold it, and then position my scissors at the corners. There we go, on a 45-degree angle. And then just cut that. And then you've got that little V-notch. So before we go any further, I'm going to put the legs on, but I want to show you how I've done that. I'm using round rubber leg material, in this case green, and I'm just peeling pears off from that. You just separate it at one end and then just peel that right off. Then tie a knot in either end of it, and I like it to be about 5/8 inch long from the knot to the end of the material. And once you get the knot tied in there, just grab it and pop it to separate those two. And I want that separated before we tie it in because it's going to help us position it, make sure that we've got it on there in the right direction. Now I'm just going to lay this flat against the back side of the hook, and you'll be able to see when I flip it over how it's positioned. I want it to kind of snug up behind, underneath the wing on the olive foam, and be just about the length of that CCT fiber, and have just a slightly upward cant on the back end. Now gather everything together, and I'll take 2 fairly snug wraps. And you can see where it's at right now, but I want to move it just a bit. There we go. And that changes the angle just a bit, and you can see it's up on the olive foam. If you put it down on the yellow, it does some weird things where it just kind of flies about. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And you'll see that when you lay it down in there, those legs kind of want to go weird directions. And I'm going to go that way with this one. I'm going to make it the same length. Push it down on there. Hold it in place with my material hand, and then come around and just give it 2 rounds, and that's all you need. And again, it's on the olive. Let me pull that down just a bit. It's a little higher than I like. I want it right at the bottom edge of that olive foam. There you go. Hopefully you can see exactly where that's positioned. Now the eyes. For the eyes, I have cut out using a tube cutter 3/16 inch cylinders. Now if you don't have the ability to do that, you can buy 3/16 inch foam cylinders, and this is yellow. I just cut these out of using my cutter out of a Walmart flip-flop. Much less expensive than buying commercially cut. Now to get that in place, I'm going to put a drop right here at the very front. Just a little drop of this liquid super glue right at, you can see right at the front of that head. And almost where it intersects with that. Again, be careful, don't get too much. You don't want to glue your scissors to the thing. And when I did that second application, I did. So I'm going to dab a little bit off. And then I'm going to hold that right there. So I want this eye to be as far forward as possible when I do this fold. It's going to kind of roll back a little bit, but I want it to be really far forward. So we're going to roll that back, holding the eyes down. Fold that back over on top of the hair and everything. Pinch it down in place, and then take a couple of tight wraps, really tight wraps. And I want my wraps to be forward rather than back, because I don't want them compressing the legs against the body of the fly. Now once I get that locked in place, I'm going to take my scissors, I'll pull these eyes straight up, take my scissors, and I'm going to cut them coming this way. If you go this way, it kind of compresses the eye downward, but if I cut them from top to bottom, then the eye is a little more upright, like the eye of a natural hopper. So make sure your legs are out of the way. You probably can't even see that. There we go. That's a little better. And I'm going to compress my scissors down onto the foam with the leg out of the way, and then just pop it, cut it, and you see it gives it kind of an upright look. Do the same thing on the other side. Pop it. There we go. Now I want to get my legs back towards the front. So the little piece of foam that we cut off the front of the belly foam, I'm going to cut a small strip that's about the width of what the eyes are, or the head is now on top. And I'm just gonna lay that in there on top to where the center of it is right over the crease in the foam. Hold it in place and get a couple of wraps on it. And that's going to be your indicator. You'll be able to see this thing from a mile away with that on there. And then just give it a little whip finish. And you don't have to get carried away. I don't even put head cement on that because that foam compressing on there, I have never had one of these come apart. Let's get in here and cut that off. Now for the front legs, I just put my scissors in here, stretch that out, cut it, and they pop apart. And for the back legs, I'm going to look and see which one of those little pieces of leg material was pointing in the direction that's most natural, and then cut the other one off. And that, my friends, is the DQ hopper. It's a really good floater of a dropper, even a fairly heavy dropper, because of the amount of foam in there, and the extra foam in the eyes also helps to float it. The butt end of the fly will dip down in the water a little bit more than the head, and then you've got that indicator on top as further flotation. So tie a few of these up. I hope you like them. I hope you like the fly, and I think you'll catch a few fish. Until next time, peace, love, and fly fishing, my friends.